Okay, so what do we think we understand about the most fundamental principle of the universe, i.e. magnetism, that which gives definition and shape to the entire universe? Obviously, this is a spatial neodymium iron boron. It's a chrome-plated ceramic magnet. Most people don't know that these magnets are not solid metal like a piece of sheet steel. They're actually ceramic. It doesn't matter whether it's a ferrite, neodymium iron boron, samarium cobalt. It doesn't matter what it is. The nature of magnetism is the loss of inertia. What is the loss of inertia? It'd be the loss of dielectricity, which follows a ratio of 1 over phi to the power of negative 3. It's also the same equation I have tattooed right there on my wrist, my discovery. The actual ancient Greeks discovered that, and I found the equation hidden in Plato's Republic 509d to 511. I translate ancient Greek. So, what do we think we understand? Now, the entire world, throughout its entire history, has always talked about the conjugate relationship of everything in nature, from macro to micro. You know, analogously, yin and yang, Isis and Osiris, light and dark, big and small. The Greeks referred to it as the antinomies. Specifically, it relates to an ancient Greek philosophical term called ananke. Unfortunately, it's translated as necessity, but it actually means something far, far more deep than necessity, just as the Greek term logos certainly means far, far more than a word. I mean, logos is untranslatable. It's absolutely untranslatable. Proportion, word. Anyway, getting back to the conjugate nature of electricity. Magnetism. What is magnetism? What defines what a magnet is, and what defines what magnetism is? It is the case that in turning this is the exact same empirical object before it was turned into a magnet, before and after. What defines it is an attribute. That attribute is field coherency. What defines normal light, like I'm shining this with like now, versus a laser? Well, this is a 100-watt light bulb. Okay, I could sit there and read a book by it. I could sit underneath it and fall asleep under it. It isn't going to hurt me. A 100-watt laser will burn a hole right through me, just like a bullet. Exactly like a damn bullet. Exactly. So, we have to understand what it is when we're talking about attributes. What is the property of something? Attributes. Coherency. Field coherency. Now this is a spatial object. Now it's kind of flat, obviously so. It's oddly shaped. It's obviously a hard drive magnet. Doesn't matter what size or shape it is. This one is a ring magnet. It's also a neodymium iron boron. Now we have to actually go back to really simple things. Why is it that you think that magnets come together? There's no such thing as magnetic attraction. Magnetism is radiation, specifically the most fundamental form of radiation. Not radiation in the sense of alpha, beta, and gamma. It is literally the loss of inertia that defines electricity. Dielectricity, excuse me. Why do you think these two accelerate? I'm about to do a demonstration, so bear with me just for a second. This is an ancient principle that goes all the way back to lodestones, which you break off a piece of lodestone, and the two would smack together. They'd come together. Well, people have been talking about that, specifically philosophers and metaphysicians, for thousands of years. They would call it attraction. They would talk about atomic corpuscles. Let's get down to brass tacks here. Mother Nature is really simple. There are only two principles in the universe. And here is where the conjugate nature of the universe comes into play. Force and motion, and inertia and acceleration. There is no force involved in this stationary object from a rest position with no energy added, working against gravity, accelerating upwards, is there? That is not a force. That is an acceleration. Let's do a demonstration in a second. Just bear with me. Think about this for a second. By the way, I own every book on magnetism that exists on this earth. Every damn one. I'm a total book slut. Okay? Every book on magnetism that exists. Every one of them. There is not a single book that will tell you what magnetism is, how instantaneous action at a distance works, but it's really simple. This is not attraction. Okay? There's no force involved. Force and motion and inertia and acceleration. So what do you think? This is an unnatural state that magnetism wants to be in. But magnetism is a dielectric field. It is a reciprocating precessional hyperboloid. This is an unnatural state. This was a lump of neodymium iron boron that was nickel-plated or chrome-plated, and then it was magnetized. What does magnetizing mean? It means the same thing between coherent light and incoherent light. This is a coherent, point non-specific entity. If this were a thick magnet and I were to slice it like a meat slicer into 1,000 slices, each slice, this is a hardcore fact, each slice will have a north pole and a south pole. But a magnet doesn't have any poles at all. What do you mean? Of course, every magnet has a north pole and a south pole. Are you referring to magnetic monopoles? No, there's no such thing as a magnetic monopole. It means that that which we define as a north pole and a south pole is the inverse in the conjugate principle to inertia, the dielectric inertial plane. If I were to take some magnetic viewing film and put it on this magnet, you would see a line, a bright white line, right at the center of any and every magnet. And if you cut it in two, and two again, and two again, it would make 1,000 little magnets, each with its own north and south pole. But that is not polarity. This magnet, in its current magnetized state, we talk about aligned domains. That's a description. That's not an explanation. Humanity is ripe with descriptions, not explanations. Okay? Polarity is the inverse of counter space. This is the conjugate nature of the universe. Dielectricity is counter space. If you actually take a look at two AC current lines outside your house, outside any and every house in America, AC current lines running down the streets, okay? And if you were to take a cross-section, you would see the exact same formation as you would on a magnet. You would see a plane of inertia, you would see circular lines representing the magnetism, but you would see conjugate lines coming together, and that would be the dielectricity. That would be the point of inertia. So what happens if I let this magnet come to its rest state? Let's get to the point here. This is not the rest state of this magnet. What do you mean it's not the rest state? Okay, let's take a look. Let's do something dramatic. Okay, now we got two magnets. Well, duh. We know how to break magnets. Okay. We're bringing the magnet to its rest state. Remember, it was a flat little pancake, right? Pieces go flying, right? Here's a piece flew back here. Right? Oh, this thing is getting rounder and rounder. Also, additionally so, is taking on a smaller and smaller and smaller state of spatial existence. Dielectricity, if people always want to equate this to a black hole. I'll explain black holes later. Black holes are actually really simple to explain. This wants to take on a smaller and smaller state of spatial existence. Okay, it's smaller now. It was big and flat. Now it's kind of small and round. Let's help it achieve the state that it wants to be in. Of course, there it went flying across the room. Now let's use a ring magnet. No, it went over here. Here we go. It's kind of hard to smack these suckers. Okay, now once I take it off the metal hammer, and I bring the other broken pieces over here, okay, now we've got like about 40 pieces. These are ceramic, by the way. Okay. Its natural state of existence, it wants to become smaller and smaller, rounder and rounder and round. Because why? Why spherical? Why? Why? Conjugate nature of the universe. Mother Nature is not a hooker covered with body glitter, and she doesn't have a calculator. The universe is very simple. Force and motion, inertia and acceleration. You want to call it yin and yang, Isis and Osiris, light and dark, good and bad. Conjugate nature of the universe is that simple. Force and motion, inertia and acceleration. Force and motion, divergence. Centrifugal divergence. Centripetal convergence. I am helping this magnet achieve due to its field coherency, achieve the state that it wants to be in, a state of spherical. Let's take a ring magnet. It doesn't make any difference what size or shape it is. Same thing. Okay. Let's take 1/2 off. Let's break it again. Okay. Every magnet wants to attain one state of existence. The smallest state of spatial footprint possible. It is not due to magnetism. It's due to dielectricity. Magnetism is the loss of inertia. A magnetism is not a magnetic device. It is a coherent dielectric field object. Dielectric inertial plane. The plane of inertia. The loss of that inertia defines magnetism. Let's keep breaking it. Okay, I've broken it several times. Let's put the two pieces together. Let's peel it off the hammer. Now, what was a nice flat little donut-shaped device we have, if I were to keep smashing the hell out of it and taking up your time, you get the point, it would want to achieve the smallest spatial volume. This is obviously a lot smaller than it was a few minutes ago. Smallest spatial volume possible. You have to understand what the hell magnetism is. What we see is the magnet is no different than a child watching a puppet show. You're looking at the puppet, i.e. magnetism. That's fascinating. Love the puppets. The big picture that's going on behind the puppet show, obviously, is the puppeteer that's pulling the strings. What defines a magnet and magnetism is not magnetism. It is dielectricity and the loss of that inertia. Dielectricity is inertia, is field. That field perturbation is a spatial, voluminous, divergent, centrifugal phenomena that humans are fascinated in. Why are we fascinated in it? Because we are spatial, geometric critters. Everything we understand is spatial. Okay? This is counter space. This is the conjugate to geometry, metageometry. This is the conjugate nature of the universe. Magnetism, dielectricity. Space is nothing. Space has no attributes. Nikola Tesla said this. Aristotle said this. Sir Isaac Newton said this. Space has no properties. Space has no attributes. Space is nothing. It is literally the afterthought of the loss of inertia, the afterwake, the ejecta, if you will, of centrifugal divergent magnetic fields. Space is nothing. This is the rest point of field coherency. And if I were to keep smashing it, it would become nice and perfectly round. This is round enough. I mean, how many times do I have to smash them, right? I don't have to smash them that many times, do I? What do you think magnetism is? Now, before this was magnetized, these two magnets, if I smashed them, they'd just been powdered dust all over the damn floor. Because they're ceramic. You know what happens when you smash a ceramic plate, right? It's going to go everywhere. So why increase dielectric capacitance when these were zapped, i.e. magnetized? These now have field coherency. Why do they want to have a rest state of the smallest spatial existence due to releasing their physical cast atomic volume? Their physical volume. One was a wafer, the other one was a large flat donut. I relieved them of that spatial stress that they had that they did not want to be in. That was an unnatural rest state for the dielectricity and its desire, for lack of a better term, to have the smallest spatial state. This is counter space in motion. This is counter space in principle. This is the conjugate nature of the universe. Magnetism, centrifugal divergence. Dielectricity, centripetal convergence. Smallest space possible. Smallest volume. Volume equals magnetism. When two magnets come together, that is the release of volume. That is the increase of inertia. The universe is literally that damn simple. Oh, what did you prove by smashing magnets? Well, if you didn't understand it, then I didn't prove anything, but that just means that you're a blockhead. And that's the facts. So answer the question again. Why is the desire of this magnet to release its rest state to obtain the smallest spatial footprint possible? Answer the question. It's dielectricity. It's metageometry. See, Mother Nature doesn't draw a line like this, or like this, or like this. She only draws a line like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, from a point outwards. You want to know what polarity is? I'll tell you what polarity is. Polarity is taking a point, subdividing it, and you have polarity, and the center of which is the dielectric inertial plane. This is magnetism, this is dielectricity. This whole thing is a magnet. This is the point of counterspace. This is the point of magnetism. If this one object were a single magnet, that would be it. But we only see the black part. We only see the magnetism. We don't see the dielectricity. The dielectricity and its loss of inertia is what is driving the entire puppet show that we are fascinated by, i.e. magnetism, i.e. the magnet. But a magnet is not a magnetic device. It is a coherent dielectric object which is hidden. The puppeteer is always hidden. Every magnet the puppeteer that's driving the magnetism is hidden right at the center. And you can see that center underneath any magnetic viewing film, underneath the ferrocell, underneath any magnetic field viewing device, the plane of inertia, the dielectric inertial plane. But we're only interested in this stuff. Oh, look, magnetic attraction and repulsion. Well, there's no such thing as magnetic attraction and repulsion. There is centripetal convergence and centrifugal divergence. And magnetism is a reciprocating precessional hyperboloid that extracts itself out as a hypertrochoid pattern. Additive, constructive, and destructive convergent and divergent interference. It's kind of impossible to imagine in your head for most people, but I can see it perfectly clearly. Perfectly clearly. With absolute supreme clarity. And the best part about it is that the universe couldn't even exist any other way than this. It cannot even exist any other explanation for the universe and field mechanics is as ridiculous as talking about unicorns and leprechauns. And it's also as ridiculous as thinking that Mother Nature has a calculator. The universe is not based in math. Mother Nature doesn't have a damn calculator. The universe is only based in one thing: centrifugal divergence and centripetal convergence. Force and motion and inertia and acceleration. There is no force involved in acceleration. None. That is why there's also no such thing as gravity. Gravity, what you just saw me smashing this and these pieces coming together, is the exact same principle of gravity. Gravity is not an autonomous field modality. It is dielectric acceleration. There is no such thing as gravity. Well, obviously there's such thing as gravity. If I let go of this hammer, it falls to the earth, right? Well, there's no difference between this and all these pieces jumping together. It's dielectric acceleration. The only difference is this is coherent and this is incoherent. It's the same difference between a light that is illuminating this video and a laser. Field coherency. FC. Field coherency. Incoherent dielectric acceleration. Coherent dielectric acceleration. This would be a field laser, if you will. Except the laser in this case is not based in light, but in dielectricity. Field coherency. This is irrefutable. It's undeniable. It's undeniable by anybody. If you think there's an autonomous force or principle, there's obviously no force involved in me letting go of this and it falling to the earth, is there? Gravity is not a force. It's an acceleration. These pieces jumping together, is not a force. It's an acceleration. Force and motion is something different. It is the loss of inertia. I burn energy from calories from me eating food to lift up this hammer against against gravity. Okay? I eat food, I burn calories, I create energy to lift this up away from the point of acceleration. Force and motion, inertia and acceleration. The universe is only that complex. Two principles and two principles only. Yin and yang, light and dark, good and bad. It's the conjugate principle of field mechanics. The universe is literally that damn simple. The unfortunate fact is that humans are that damn stupid that we can't grasp something so damn simple. And that, of course, is a shame. Lux y veritas.